Right, good morning everyone. I'm sorry about the delay. The meeting is now starting. My name is Andrew Ledbetter, support members of Cheshire Fire Authority. This is the first meeting of the Fire Authority which has been taking place by Skype, so please bear with us if we appear to be taking our time. We will have to. Just before the broadcast began, I checked to make sure that all of the participants in the meeting were connected and able to take part. We still have a couple of members who are waiting to join the meeting, and we believe that they will be joining by phone rather than using the normal route through Skype. We've already got one member who's joined by phone. I've had confirmation that the meeting is being successfully broadcast on YouTube. And with the help of colleagues, I will monitor the connections throughout the meeting. If there are problems with the technology during the meeting, it may be necessary to adjourn from time to time so that we can fix them. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the remote meeting rules that have been agreed, and they can be found at item 1N of the agenda pack on pages 63 to 71. Whilst it is our intention to have pictures as well as sound, we know from experience that this can cause problems, and generally speaking, only the individual that is speaking will have their camera turned on, and this may not be possible for all participants because broadband is not consistent throughout Cheshire. As I stated earlier, we have at least one member that will be joining just by phone, probably two others. Item 1B confirms that the meeting will be recorded. From now on, I will be addressing the members of the Fire Authority, and shortly a member of the Fire Authority will take over and chair the meeting, so you won't have to listen to me. The first thing that I'm going to just ask the Fire Authority members, and perhaps if I could have a response from Councillor Rudd and Councillor Parker, is whether or not they're happy for the meeting to proceed, given that we've got a few members missing at the moment through technical issues. Councillor Rudd.
I'm happy that we proceed. We've been waiting for 40 minutes from when people were supposed to try and get in first time.
Okay. Certainly, yes, Bob. Fine. Thank you. Councillor Parker. Parker, we can't hear you at the moment.
Andrew, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
Right, I also support starting the meeting.
So online, let me confirm who's online at the moment. We've got councillors Bob Rudd, Gina Lewis, James Nicholas, Jill Holbrook, Jonathan Parry, Karen Mundry, Marilyn Houston, Martin Delaney, Michael Beanland, Nick Mannion, Norman Wright, Bill Harris, Rachel Bailey, Razia Daniels, Rob Polehill, Steph Nelson, Steve Wright, Stuart Parker. We've got Councillor Peter Wheeler on the phone. And we've got David Keane, the Police and Crime Commissioner, is also in the meeting. We've got a number of other people connected who are part of the meeting, and they will be speaking shortly. So if I could ask members, please, to turn to page 1 of your agenda and the report concerned with appointments for 2020-21. Paragraphs 2 and 3 explain what has driven the preparation of this report. I was instructed by the group leaders that there should be as little change as possible from the 2019-2020 appointments, and this follows the approach of your own local authorities. For that reason, the report is slightly simpler than usual, with some agenda items that you'd normally see at this kind of meeting all subsumed into it. Appendix 2, which starts on page 9, contains details of all of the appointments, although there were 3 blanks that I just need to confirm the names to you now. On page 9, I understand that Councillor Karen Mundry has been appointed as lead member for Warrington Borough Council, and that was a decision for the Warrington Borough Council members. On page 10, I understand that Councillor Peter Wheeler's name should be inserted as the replacement on the Brigade Managers Pay and Performance Committee. Finally, on page 15, please insert Councillor Steve Wright's name for Member Champion for Mental Health. The recommendations can be found on page 1. I understand that the group leaders will propose and second the recommendations. Councillor Bob Rudd.
I will move the recommendations on page 1.
I support that.
Now, I understand. Yep, I understand that this is agreed, but we'll now pause for 10 seconds to allow any members to request a vote. If you wish to have a vote, please indicate by typing speak into the chat function and we'll invite you to speak. Oh, by the way, Peter, because you're on the phone, you just need to speak up. Peter Wheeler, Councillor Peter Wheeler. Okay, no one has indicated that they wish to speak. Therefore, the recommendations contained in the report, which were proposed and seconded, are approved. Councillor Bob Rudd will now chair the meeting.
Thank you, Andrew, for guiding us through the preliminaries. For those watching on the video, I'm Councillor Bob Rudd. I'm Chair of the Fire Authority for 2020-21. And I will now take us through the agenda. I would like to welcome Councillor Jill Holbrook back to the Fire Authority. And I've got a few pieces of housekeeping. First of all, members of the Fire Authority are engaged in their first remote meeting and all at different locations. Some officers are in one location, and as you have heard, intend to make sure that members stay connected to the meeting and it continues to be broadcast. If a member is disconnected from the meeting, then the meeting will pause for a short time to allow connection to be re-established. However, the meeting can continue even if not all members are connected, providing that certain rules aren't breached. Because I'm not in the same room as the officers, I will from time to time ask them to confirm things to me, such as which members have indicated they wish to speak on any item and whether everyone remains connected to the meeting. Members will use the chat function in Skype if they wish to speak, and will also use it for any votes that are necessary. Officers and members should make sure that they use their name before speaking so that people know who is saying what. Officers and members should also make it clear which page, paragraph, etc. they are concerned with, and if they are referring to a document. We will do our best to make the meeting as clear as possible. You will find it much easier to understand if you are referring to the agenda pack. You've already had a reminder that the meeting is recorded. We'll now move on to item 1C. And item 1C is appointment of the members of the Fire Authority. These are for noting, and I've already welcomed Councillor Holbrook back to her first meeting on the Fire Authority. And I do hope, Councillor Holbrook, that you enjoy the work on the Fire Authority. Item 1D, apologies for absence. We did the roll call before the meeting, and I do know that Councillor Les Morgan has attended his apologies. Do we have any others, Andrew?
Don't, but we are still struggling to get Councillor David Brown and Councillor Mike Biggin on the call. Announcements. We don't have the usual sheet, which would highlight a significant number of wide range of activities and events that have taken place. Obviously, coronavirus has had an impact on those. However, the service has coped admirably with the pandemic with impressively low sickness levels. I know I can't possibly capture everything, but I want to just touch on some of which has happened in Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service over the past few months. The service has adapted every part of the organisation to meet the challenges of the current emergency. Let me give you a few examples. Every single shift system for firefighters has changed to protect the service ability to respond to incidents,
Firefighters have done everything they can to support and protect our communities. They have produced safety messages, hosted virtual open days, raised thousands of pounds for several charities, and at the same time done an amazing job responding to operational incidents. Protection staff have completely changed how they do their job and have managed to keep buildings safe throughout the emergency, as well as doing jobs like supporting the running of emergency mortuaries and mask-based fit tests for the North West Ambulance Service. Mechanics have split into 2 separate shifts and worked flexibly to ensure we protect our ability to fix vehicles. They have been vital in ensuring the service has vehicles available to respond. Support staff have carried on working from home, relying on technology to keep in touch. Many of them have also taken on new jobs to support everything from stores to prevention work. Without them adapting to their way of working, the service would have really struggled. Prevention staff and volunteers have transformed their jobs. They've still been working with young people and protecting the most vulnerable from fire, but have also done dozens of new jobs. They've been delivering shopping to shielded people, delivering huge amounts of prescriptions across Cheshire, delivering blood, delivering breast milk, mask face fit testing, and many other essential jobs in this emergency. I know it is nothing short of what we would expect from our excellent and motivated workforce, but I think it is very appropriate to record our appreciation for all staff, volunteers, cadets, and anyone who's been helping in any way with Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service. And I'd like to think that I'm not just saying that as chair, but I'm speaking on behalf of the whole fire authority. Andrew.
And Councillor David Edwards are now on the call, which is great. They're in the meeting. Councillor, let me just check. Phil Harris wishes to speak.
Councillor Harris.
Deaths in witness. Sorry, Phil Harris from Holton. I forgot to give my name. I'm fire authority member for one of the fire authority members for Holton. I'd like to thank the cadets, the Prince's Trust, and some firefighters who came as far as from Shropshire, I think, one of them. We started a little gardening project in the one of the local care homes. We hoped that care home project could be act as a test to be replicated across other care homes across Cheshire, if possible, in the future. Learned quite a lot by it. We got a pergola erected, a raised timber bed, and this is for a care home with 23 elderly people who are obviously shielded during the current pandemic. So I'd just like to put formally on record my thanks for that. Marvellous job being done by all. And I still think, although a lot of the volunteers have gone back to doing what they normally do, I know that there's certainly still support there from the likes of the fire cadets and others possibly in the future. And what we've done in probably 2.5 months is what would normally take place over about a 6-month period if you were doing it through the normal processes. So they've done very well there as well, and in between the weather breaks. So that's all I wanted to put on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor.
Firstly. Secondly, I totally endorse the comments made in regard to the wide-ranging work delivered by Cheshire during this pandemic, and of course that continues. I'm particularly I've been particularly thrilled in my area of Audlam with the on-call service station in Audlam, the way that they have led the thank yous to all key workers during this time. And in particular, as we commence a meeting on Skype for the first time, I would like to thank all that have made this happen, and the support system to ensure that this meeting could go ahead, in my opinion, has been exemplary. And I've had one or two problems, and the manner in which equipment has been dispatched in such a professional and careful way as well. And I just feel the need to say it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. If we can move on, item 1F is declaration of members' interests, and we must confirm whether there are any declarations of interest in any item on the agenda. And I'll start by making a statement which is relevant to item 2, the Integrated Risk Management Plan 2020-2024. I do not have an interest that needs to be declared, but some of you will know that I signed a petition which was being promoted in Chester. The petition concerned with seeing the return of a second fire engine to Chester Fire Station. We will hear shortly that a further petition has been created which is concerned with maintaining the second fire engine at Ellesmere Port Station. Even though I signed the Chester petition, I have kept an open mind about the question that the Fire Authority posed. Essentially, it asked, what is the best use of the second fire engine currently located at Ellesmere Port Fire Station? With regard to an interest. Anyone?
Yes, Councillor Razia Daniels wishes to speak, Chair.
Councillor Daniels. Councillor Daniels, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you have something to say on this?
I wish to declare that I also signed the petition which was being promoted by the retired firemen for the return.
Thank you. Councillor Delaney.
Thank you, Chairman. If the declaration that you make could be recorded against my name as well, because I also signed that petition.
Thank you. Councillor Holbrook.
Chairman, yes, thank you. My declaration is the same as the previous speaker's declarations. Thank you.
Are there any other declarations on this item or on any item that appears on the Fire Authority agenda?
For a second, please. I believe that we now have Councillor Mike Biggin online. I'd just like to check that we can hear him and he can hear us, if you don't mind. Councillor Biggin.
Yeah, I've got you, Andrew. Yeah. Hello.
Connected to the call, or are you on phone?
Yeah, I'm on phone.
Okay, thanks for that.
Here at the moment to see if everybody is connected still. Andrew, you going to do a check?
Please. Yep, all the people who were in at the start and a few joined us since. So I think we've got everyone online now, apart from Les Morgan. Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Chair. So we now move to item 1G, which is members questions from the public, and we have no questions from the public. We have, however, received a petition, and I understand that you have received a note from the monitoring officer which confirms the details. I would like him to provide some information now for the benefit of those who might be watching or listening.
Justin Madders, MP for Ellesmere Port and Neston, promoted a petition that states, this petition calls on Cheshire Fire Authority to retain 2 engines at Ellesmere Port Fire Station. Ellesmere Port Fire Station currently has 2 fire engines, but draft plans from Cheshire Fire Authority recommend reducing this to just 1. There is a strong case for the retention of the fire engines in Ellesmere Port. Ellesmere Port is a growing town with more and more houses being built, as well as a long-standing large industrial base which needs fire cover. The petition was part hard copy and part online, and there were a total of 3,893 signatories. The Fire Authority has a petitions protocol which contains rules about how we handle the petitions. They're not intended to cause a hindrance, they just help us to process them and give us time to make sure that the petitions are accurate. The petitions protocol suggests to the officers when they're checking them to draw a distinction perhaps between those with a direct interest in the subject matter of the petition and those that may not have a direct interest. And we tend to think about that in fairly simple terms. Do they live in Cheshire? Do they live on the borders of Cheshire, or do they live elsewhere? So we tend to look at that. It's not a hard and fast rule, but that's why I'm going to give you some figures now, which just give you an idea of where some of the people were who signed the petition. The hard copy petition signatories were totaled at 728. The vast majority, 714 of those were Cheshire postcodes, 7 were non-Cheshire and 7 were incomplete. So we did have a few odd ones that we couldn't really count. The online petition signatories total 3,255. Cheshire postcodes, 1,981. Non-Cheshire postcodes, 1,269, but of those, 765 were near the Cheshire border. There were some international signatories, 59, and there were 5 that were incomplete. So that was the breakdown, just gives you an idea. So that, you know, the total number, as I stated, 3,893.
Thank you, Andrew. Justin Madders, MP for Ellesmere Port and Neston, has recorded a short statement concerned with the petition. Can we please play that now?
First of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today remotely. I know that it's not easy for the Democrats, so I'm pleased that the advances that we've made in technology will enable me to address virtually. And it's important that I do so because there are many things that have not been said in the paperwork that you need to hear from me. But before I go into detail, I will simply say to you that this is the wrong decision being made at the wrong time. It will, on your own figures, worsen the response time in Ellesmere Port and therefore increase the risk to people living in my constituency. And critically, it is not listening to the very people who will be most impacted by the decision. So let's start with the consultation process. I do not believe you can attach too much weight to that, as it is a process that, to my mind, is weighted to justify a decision that has effectively already been taken. I say that because, as you know, in February 2018, the authority resolved that officers be instructed to determine if the second fire engine at Ellesmere Port could be relocated to another area or station in order to satisfy the sustainability question and value for money challenge presented by the review. In other words, the decision was in reality taken 2.5 years ago in response to the deteriorating financial position at the time. I don't doubt that the authority has suffered massive cuts in the last decade, which has seen a huge reduction in the number of whole-time firefighters, but I cannot ignore the accusation leveled by the FBU, amongst others, that the authority is cash-rich and has massive reserves that it could deploy if it wanted to finance an additional engine at Chester without reducing cover elsewhere. I know elsewhere on the agenda you make a decision where you commit to spending what will be over 5 years' worth of running costs of a second engine at Ellesmere Port on station modernisations. I really must ask you to consider whether those are the right priorities. I've seen nothing to show that any financial modelling has taken place to enable the second engine to remain in Ellesmere Port. So can you honestly tell me that the report before you today also clearly states that one of the reasons why retention of the second engine at Ellesmere Port cannot be considered is because it would be, and I quote, counter to the authority decision at its meeting in February 2018. So in fact, what we see here is the authority using a previous decision to justify this one. And it seems that the consultation process has been entered into with its main aim being to bolster that decision rather than to take an open-minded approach. Why else word the consultation question in such a way to disguise the fact that the proposal to move the second engine to Parylene would see an overall reduction in cover in Ellesmere Port? The question simply asks about the move. It does not state that the existing engine at Parylene will be moved, nor does it state that the overall effect will be a reduction in cover. It would therefore be more accurate to say the question ought to have been, do you support an increase in cover in Chester at the expense of Ellesmere Port, which is what is being done in reality? And the report on the survey findings on that question should therefore be taken with a large pinch of salt, because it suggests less than 10% of those who responded disagreed with the decision. Those figures are in fact wrong in any event, as they fail to account for the almost 4,000 people who signed a petition to keep the second fire engine at Ellesmere Port. Once those representations are taken into account, the proportion of people opposed to the move changes from 9.3% to over 80%. The answer to that question should have included those representations and given the petition the weight it deserves. That view is further reinforced by the fact that the majority of official consultation responses are from the Cheshire area, and of course they're going to want an increase in fire cover. The authorities should have focused more time on engaging the population who were going to lose out, and the process should have stopped altogether once the COVID-19 pandemic began. Extending the consultation for a month did nothing to change the flaws there. Clearly, people's attention was going to be focused elsewhere once the pandemic was underway. And of course, it was physically impossible for us to gather any more petition signatures during this period. I did make representations to the authority that they should halt the consultation, but they do not appear to have been included in your papers, nor does my original objection to the proposals. And some of the reasoning used in the report to justify the decision is questionable. In paragraph 3.17, it says, having 2 fire engines on a whole-time station will be sustainable and would mean that one of the fire engines can be released to cover and support other areas when required, such as to facilitate operational training courses. The second fire engine at Ellesmere Port is currently used for this purpose around 9% of the time. The implication from this is that 91% of the time the second engine at Ellesmere Port is being fully utilised, yet nowhere in the report does it set out what the impact of the loss of the second engine will be. The only reference is that the average second fire engine response times in Ellesmere Port would increase by a predicted 2 minutes 23 seconds. That's almost put in as an afterthought, but in the context of response times, we know that is significant. And according to the FBU, response times have deteriorated to life-risking incidents by 1 minute 48 seconds between 2010-11 and 2015-16. So we have slow response times, an increased risk, and the authority seek to remove cover. We know the fire authority has modelled lower incidents for the last 3 years, but that has not, in fact, materialised. And I have to say, I have little confidence that the authority is following any kind of coherent strategy. We know Parylene was initially opened by taking the second pump from Cheshire. So these proposals effectively reverse that move, except that Ellesmere Port now loses out because their second pump will replace the Cheshire engine. I have to say this is symptomatic of muddled thinking. It seems Parylene was built without any clear sight of how it was to be sustained. So we just see this as a rather odd shuffling of the pack, which is to the detriment of Ellesmere Port. It is worth reminding the authority that the population in Ellesmere Port has gone up significantly in recent years. Thousands of new properties have now also got planning permission and are at various stages of development, and there are still significant areas of land which are being marketed for the development. Yet there's no recognition or even mention of this in the documentation. And as you will note from the many comments attached to the petition, a lot of people did speak about the increase in housing in Ellesmere Port. And of course, they also spoke about the particular nature of the industry in Ellesmere Port, which is a huge risk in itself. We have a large oil refinery and a significant petrochemical industry. Your own report does state that there is a risk because Ellesmere Port has a higher number of coma sites than elsewhere. The report before you states coma sites carry some of the highest risks of any sites in Cheshire, but they are very safe. It then says, during the last 5 years, the service has attended only one fire at a coma site in Ellesmere Port station area. The fire involved a tree in the outdoor grounds. I don't think that can be right. Everyone from Ellesmere Port remembers the massive fire at the shop unit at SR in Stanlow in August 2018. At least half a dozen engines from the authority attended that. So it's another question mark against the accuracy of the paperwork you have before you. And that's just one incident I remember. I don't know how many more there might have been. I don't have the records. But I do wonder if such a huge incident has been missed, what else has been overlooked. So finally, I appreciate you're very pushed for time with a big agenda. So I'd like to thank you for your attention today. And I make one final plea to you to listen to what the public are saying, acknowledge the feeling in Ellesmere Port that with a Chester-dominated authority that this is a done deal, and that for all the reasons I've set out today, there are plenty of reasons to believe that what you're being presented with is a report designed to bolster decisions already taken, and you can show the people of Ellesmere Port that that's the case. So please listen to what they're saying, show that you're recognising that 80% of people who respond to the consultation do not want that second fire engine removed, and make the right decision for the people of Ellesmere Port. Thank you.
Some members will recall that a petition concerned with the return of the second fire engine to Chester was presented to the Fire Authority at its meeting in June 2019. Again, I will ask the monitoring officer to provide a few details. Andrew.
Better speaking again. The petition was part hard copy and part online. The hard copy petition stated to see the return of Chester's second fire engine and objection to the proposed spending of £5 to £5.5 million on a replacement fire station, presented by Chester retired firefighters, still caring for you. The online petition said something slightly different. It said 2 fire engines for Chester, listen to the experience and concerns of retired firefighters, return Cheshire's second fire engine and scrap plans to demolish and rebuild the current Chester fire station at a cost of £5 million. The hard copy and online petitions were essentially about the same issues. The hard copy petition contained 3,896 signatories and the online petition contained 2,521 signatories. There were a total of 85 signatories that were from postcodes outside Cheshire or neighbouring localities, 15 from the online and 70 from the hard copy. The total number of signatories was 6,495. And interestingly, I have had another block of signatories sent to me overnight by one of the retired firefighters, but I haven't looked at them or counted them, so I can't tell you how many there are. But the total number was 6,495.
Thank you, Andrew. Chris Matheson, MP for Chester, has also been in touch and was keen to make a short statement. Whilst I can see nothing in the Constitution that covers this, I feel that this is a reasonable request. The petition is directly relevant to the issue that we will consider later. Please, can this be played now?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to address the Fire Authority meeting as you consider plans for the coming year. Advice based on experience and data throughout this whole campaign. I also pay tribute to the Fire Brigades Union. I hope that they will continue to play a full role in advising the Fire Authority in years to come. And can I also thank Chief Officer Cashin, who I have found to be open, honest and accountable and always willing to listen to different opinions and then respond openly and honestly. Obviously, I support the proposals that are outlined in the papers before you, bringing another fire engine back to Chester. I'm told that all the figures justify this, and these figures have been independently audited. So I will be supporting or asking you to support these proposals. However, I am extremely unhappy about one aspect of this. This has been made out to be a battle between Chester and Ellesmere Port as to where one pump will go, but it's much more than that. It's a battle between Chester and Ellesmere Port and Crewe and Macclesfield and Wilmslow, Warrington, and all of the rural areas in between. And the reason is simple. Since 2010, year on year, the amount of funding that has been given from central government to support our fire authority has been cut and cut and cut. I understand that the fire authority has had no capital support for projects such as this, the new fire station in Chester, for the last 6 years, having to play off capital funding and capital improvements against day-to-day requirements and current funding. That slashing of public services and that denuding of public services of resources that are, in this case, essential to saving lives must stop. And I call on all members of the Fire Authority to reject the position of the government in cutting and cutting and cutting support to Cheshire Fire Authority. This cannot continue, and if it does, lives will be at stake. I pay tribute to our firefighters right across the county. They go into work every day knowing they may face mortal danger, but they go in anyway. And I am extremely grateful to all of them for the service they give our country. Thank you.
We will, of course, need to take account of these petitions alongside the considerable consultation feedback that has been received. If members wish to comment upon one or both petitions, please make a note and do so when we get to item 2 on the agenda. But we will now go back to item 1H, which is the minutes of the Fire Authority These can be found on pages 17 to 31. Are members happy to accept them?
Move, Chair.
Move that, Chair.
Have any members indicated they wish to speak on those minutes? And if you're on the phone, speak up. Andrew, you wish to respond?
They have not. No one wishes to speak, Chair.
Thank you. I take it these are confirmed and as a correct record, and my signature can be added to them. Item 1. Sorry? No, you agree? Agreed, Chair. Agreed. Item 1I and 1J are both for information, pages 33 to 41.
Approve those, Chair.
Anyone wish to speak? Andrew?
No one's indicated, Chair, no.
Take it that you're all happy to accept those as received for information.
Agreed, Chair.
Item 1K, capital funding to improve the environmental performance of the new Chester fire station. We're now on item 1K, page 43. This item confirms that a decision was taken to add 300,000 to the allocated capital funding for Chester Fire Station to improve the environmental performance of the new building. This would have been considered at the Fire Authority in April, which was obviously cancelled. It could not wait until today. Have any members indicated they wish to speak?
No, Chair, they've not.
Thank you. We move on. Item 1L, Fire Station Modernisation Programme, release of the balance of capital funding. This is on page 53. Andrew, you wish to say a few words about this report?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll be brief. I hope it's self-explanatory, really, the report. We've now completed the works at 6 Runcorn and Sandbatch in year 1. And if we want to move into year 2, which will see us delivering works at Audlam, Holmes Chapel, Northwich and Widnes during this financial year, we need to start to spend over and above the £3.5 million that was released from the £8.5 million that's been allocated. So in other words, we're seeking to spend the additional £5 million, quite a bit of it on those next 4, but it will take us into year 3. What we do know is that the works are producing great results. We also know if we continue to deliver the same kind of results, our original £8.5 million capital funding will not be enough. This is covered in paragraph 4. And what I can say to you is that there are many uncertainties at the minute. COVID obviously is one of them. Brexit is another one. And I think our aspirations for environmental improvements to the buildings may also push up some of the costs. So you have the recommendations. That's all I need to say at this point, Chair.
Thank you. Are members happy to support the recommendations in the report on page 53?
I'd move those, Chair. Gina Lewis.
Thank you, Gina.
I'll second then, Chair. Councillor Steph Knowles.
Thank you. Are there is anyone else wish to speak? Andrew?
No one else has indicated, no.
Okay. I believe that we're all in agreement and happy to note the report and release the balance of capital funding for the fire station modernisation programme. Does anyone, do you wish to have a vote on this? Andrew, do we need to have a vote on this?
I think providing you wait 10 seconds and see whether anyone wants to speak, if they do not indicate, I think it's a reasonable assumption that it's been agreed, Chair.
I can't count that high. 10 seconds has passed. We'll accept that as being members consider that to be appropriate. Okay. Item 1M, page 59. It's a programme of member meetings. This is only for noting. And I know that we've missed some meetings due to the coronavirus, and there are some that are not a schedule that won't necessarily take place. And obviously it is a movable feast. So until we know where we are with coronavirus, we can only try and plan ahead. Andrew.
Yes, Chair, just to say, we will circulate an updated programme in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to liaise with group leaders and chairs of the committees just to make sure we pick the right dates if we need to move anything. But a couple of things you will want to note. Firstly, there's a Fire Authority meeting scheduled for the 29th of July. That is not now necessary and will not take place. That was to deal with the accounts, but the accounts are delayed this year because of COVID. Secondly, over on page 60, you will see that there's planning days in July. The one for the 10th of July has already been removed effectively, and we don't believe that we need the planning day on the 24th of July. So you should have that freed up in your diary, but we will confirm that in the next couple of weeks so that you've got an up-to-date list and you can update your diaries. That was.
Thank you, Andrew. Have any members indicated they wish to speak on this, including those on the phone?
No, Chair, they haven't.
We're now going to item 1N, urgent business remote meeting rules, page 61. The remote meeting rules were introduced using the urgent business procedure so that we could hold a meeting, and some rules that should help facilitate the meetings. Monitoring officer is able to update the rules in light of experience, and this is really just for noting because many members have indicated that they wish to speak, and as I'm in a separate room from everybody else, I don't know. That's why I keep asking Andrew whether or not anybody is wanting to speak.
No, Chair, no one's indicated that they wish to speak, Chair.
It's a bit clumsy, but it's about the best we can do in the circumstances. Okay, item 10 or 010, yeah. We are now on item 10. The Constitution is not contained in the pack, but can be accessed online. I understand it's good practice to adopt the Constitution each year, and I take it that you're happy to do so. Do any members? That's been moved.
Second, Chair.
Second.
Anyone wish to speak? Then the Constitution is adopted. To speak. Thank you. Right, we now move on to items requiring discussion and decision. Could you please check everyone's connected, Andrew?
So just give us a couple of moments to check, please, Chair.
Camera, and I'm finding it difficult to actually indicate that I want to speak.
Oh.
Councillor Nelson.
Yeah. Can you not use the IM in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen?
It's not showing me how to send it, Chair.
Just type it and return. Anyway, you'll have to.
Everyone is connected to the call. We've got 22 members online and the PCC.
Thank you very much. Okay, we now go to item 2, which is the IRFP for 2020 to 2024, and we've got 4 presenters. all at the end. I hope that you will find this approach acceptable. Mark, could you please introduce this item?
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. I'm conscious that we're meeting in unusual circumstances today, and as such, I want to talk through the process of how we will discuss this substantive item on the agenda, the IRMP. First, though, I do want to say some thanks. This IRMP has been developed with members over the past 1 to 2 years, with members attending lots and lots of planning days and other meetings to develop the IRMP. Equally, I also want to thank officers, representative bodies, staff and partners for their help in developing this IRMP, which will then form our next 4-year plan. There are a couple of observations that I want to make about the development of this IRMP. Firstly, members will recall that we as an organisation deliberately pressed pause on all previous plans and took an extra year, 2 years in total, to develop this current 4-year IRMP plan. At the same time, we've refined our budget management process in a way that has allowed this IRMP to differ from all its predecessors. This IRMP is the first IRMP that I can remember that does not contain a series of cuts within it. There are no posts being lost in this plan. Indeed, this plan has significant amounts of investments in it that will allow us to become a better service over the next 4 years. I just want to talk through some of the mechanics now, which the Chairman's already touched upon, about how we deal with the largest part of today's papers. So firstly, I will be shortly handing over to Graham Worrell, who will discuss the cover paper and mostly refer to Appendix 1, the Consultation Feedback Report, and Appendix 2, the Consultation Responses and Additional Resources. He will then hand over to Alex Waller. Alex Waller will mostly discuss the operational elements within Appendix 3, the review of response plans following consultation. Alex will then hand over to Michael Wright. Michael will then discuss Appendix 5, his independent review of the proposals for the aerial appliance, Wilmslow, Ellesmere Port, and the RRU before handing back to me. I will then very briefly refer to the draft IRMP in Appendix 4. We aim to go through these reports as logically as we possibly can and explain each section as we go through it. As the Chairman has already said, these meetings are difficult to do remotely. We think from a logical perspective, if speakers can hold on to their questions and ask them at the end, that would be useful, because it is possible that some of those questions that you may have early on are then answered subsequently by later speakers. I'm going to pause there and hand over to Graham to talk us through the paper and the consultation.
Thank you, Mark, and good morning, members. My name is Graham Worrell, and I'm responsible for the consultation activity within the service. I'm here today to present the feedback received from the consultation on the draft IRMP. As members are aware, the draft IRMP was approved for consultation last December and was subject to an extended 18-week consultation that concluded on the 24th of April 2020. I'll explain the rationale behind the extension later in the presentation. Moving on to page 2 of the cover report, which is item 2. For members' reference, as well as the cover report, the consultation information is contained in Appendices 1 and 2. So within Appendix 1 is the consultation feedback report, and Appendix 2 is the big document that provides copies of individual responses and comments received through the course of the consultation. On pages 2 and 3 of the cover paper, paragraphs 6 through to 8 outline the consultation process and the methods used to consult with different groups. Paragraph 8 provides an overall total of the responses received, with a significant increase on the number of responses received compared to last year's consultation. I'm now on page 4 of the cover report and will provide headline results from the consultation. For reference, further details on feedback of all the proposals can be found in the consultation feedback report, which is Appendix 1. Paragraphs 11 and 12 concern overall perceptions of the service. These are positive findings and are in line with results of previous years from consultation activity in previous years. Page 4, paragraphs 13 and 14 relate to the proposal to expand Safe and Well programme to lone person and single parent households. There was considerable support for this proposal. Key considerations are provided within paragraphs 14 to 17, and feedback recognised that the benefit of expanding the programme and that vulnerability and fire risk encompasses several factors, not simply age alone. On page 5 of the cover paper, paragraph 18 provides a conclusion based on the feedback, which states that the expansion of the Safe and Well programme is considered appropriate. On the same page, paragraphs 19 through 22 relate to feedback regarding the development of a strategic road safety plan. Page 5, paragraph 24 and through to page 6, paragraph 26 of your cover paper, is a summary of feedback provided in relation to the review of the risk-based inspection programme for non-domestic properties. This is followed by feedback regarding suggested key themes for a safety campaign aimed at houses in multiple occupation, which is detailed in paragraphs 28 to 30. For each of these 3 proposals I've highlighted, the consultation feedback will be considered by the project lead to help inform the development of the relevant programme. I will now move on to the emergency response proposals. Page 6 of your cover paper, paragraph 32 concerns the proposal to replace the 3rd aerial appliance and a fire engine at Macclesfield with a high-reach fire engine or HRFE. Pages 7, paragraph 33 to 36 provides an overview of the feedback received from the consultees. The majority of public and staff responses supported the proposal, with feedback highlighting the benefit of new technology and the capability of the HRFE as a water tower. As paragraph 37 of the report refers, key concerns relate to the lack of a height rescue capacity, reduced resilience, and queries over the optimum location of the resource. These considerations are explored in further detail in Appendix 3, while paragraph 38 explains how the feedback received from the consultation has been incorporated into the final IRMP document, which is Appendix 4. In considering the feedback received through the consultation, a conclusion is provided at paragraph 39, and Alex will provide further detail on that shortly. Page 7, paragraph 40, and then overleaf on page 8 up to paragraph 45 refers to feedback received on the proposal to introduce a day crewing system at Wilmslow Fire Station. The majority of responses supported the proposal, with comments highlighting that it would resolve staffing issues particular to Wilmslow and that the proposal made financial sense. Key considerations are outlined in paragraph 46, primarily whether a whole-time duty system would be more appropriate, how the risk from Manchester Airport is managed, and what the alternative arrangement would be if the required land is not available. These are considered further in Appendix 3. Paragraph 47 outlines how the IRMP has been updated to take into account feedback from consultees. Again, a conclusion is provided at paragraph 48, and this will be discussed further during Alex's presentation. At the top of page 9 of your cover paper, from paragraph 49, concerns the proposal to move the 2nd fire engine at Ellesmere Port to Parylene Fire Station. This would also necessitate the moving of Parylene's engine to Chester, and the net effect of this proposal would be to have 1 fire engine at Ellesmere Port Fire Station, 1 fire engine at Parylene Fire Station, and 2 fire engines at Chester Fire Station. Overleaf on page 10, paragraphs 50 through to 58 relate to the feedback received on this proposal. Overall, 52% of public respondents supported the proposal against 9% who opposed. I should highlight different levels of public support depending on geographic area. As paragraph 50 refers, there is considerable support within Chester, but a majority opposition from Ellesmere Port respondents. This specific proposal generated a considerable amount of comment and feedback, which is summarised in paragraphs 51 to 53. Key considerations include the need to address typical fire and rescue risks, such as house fires and road traffic collisions, but also specific local issues such as Chester's heritage and industry around Ellesmere Port, specifically Stanlow Oil Refinery. Paragraphs 54 to 56 of the cover paper show 47% of staff supported the proposal against 32% who opposed. Feedback included questions around the use of the 2nd fire engine at Ellesmere Port for resilience and the practical implementation of the proposal, considering the build of the new fire station at Chester and the impact of relocating staff. Paragraph 59 on page 10 provides further information on the petition promoted by Justin Madders MP, which members received earlier. I will, however, add a point of clarification in response to the statement from Justin Madders. While referred to in the cover report and appendices to provide members with information on individuals' reasons for signing the petition is separate to the formal consultation activity undertaken by officers. While both should be given their respective consideration, as indeed should the Chester petition, it is important that they are treated as separate consultation activities. Page 11, paragraph 62, shows how the IRMP has been updated to reflect consultation feedback. Finally, paragraph 63 of the cover paper provides a conclusion after considering this feedback. Again, this will be outlined in further detail shortly. Paragraph 64 to 70 covers a proposal to expand the response to road traffic collisions by placing a rapid response rescue unit, or RRU, at each primary on-call fire station. The majority of public and staff respondents supported this proposal, as shown in paragraphs 65 and 66. Key considerations include the improved response time to road traffic collisions and the opportunity for on-call firefighters to attend more incidents and thus help improve retention of staff. Other feedback relates primarily to ensuring a safe system of work for those staffing the RRU. This, along with the conclusion outlined in paragraph 70, will be expanded upon by Alex shortly. Paragraphs 71 through to 76 of your cover paper provide information on the feedback received regarding the review of water rescue and response, the development of a wildfire capability, and the review of specialist appliances. Feedback relevant to each of these proposals will be considered by the project teams to help inform their work on these issues. Overall, a majority of public and staff respondents stated their overall support for the draft RMP, as is shown on paragraph 78. The final part of my presentation will refer to paragraphs 80 to 87 on your cover paper, which is page 14. Given this was a considerable consultation programme and the RMP covers several years, independent support was sought to provide assurance. Michael Wright of Green Street Berman will update on his report later, and I'll provide an update on the work with the Consultation Institute. There were several requirements that had to be met to ensure the consultation met recognised standards of good practice. The most significant element of this was the publishing of supplementary information as outlined in paragraph 83. The publication of this information was the reason behind extending the consultation, as I referred to earlier. I am, however, happy to confirm that we have now received confirmation that the consultation has been accredited as reaching good practice. That concludes my presentation, so I thank you, and I will now hand over to Alex Waller.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. I'm this dot here, if you can see me. Before we get into the paper today, I just want to take the opportunity to thank the whole service review team. They've worked extremely hard for 2 years, working with the wider workforce, with many stakeholders, and with yourselves to produce an exciting 4-year plan that is primarily focused on investment and improvement. Members, I will focus on Appendix 3 and I will draw out the matters arising from the consultation in relation to the 4 emergency response proposals. But I'm happy to take questions later on any part of the plan. I'm now on Appendix 3, members, and I'm on page 3. And the first item is the replacement of the 3rd aerial at Macclesfield. We have 3 aerials currently across Cheshire, and these are mostly used as a water tower. And you'll have seen these, members, firing jets of water down onto the fire from above. The aerials based at Chester and Lymm were replaced in 2017. And the 3rd aerial at Macclesfield is now 17 years old